got to play 3 missions from the Battlefield 6 campaign early. I got to record that gameplay, and now I get to show you guys what's in store. From a Gibraltar beach siege that looks like a D-Day invasion that progresses into a full-on city fight, a nighttime NVG apartment raid that turns into a subway fight and then a bridge fight in New York City, and a covert assault on a PAX base deep in the mountains of Tajikistan. Now, some of you may be asking the question, does the Battlefield 6 campaign push above and beyond expectations with interesting characters, deep plots, and innovative gameplay? Or does it fall into a standard AAA set-piece experience with little in the way of surprises? Well, to fully answer that question, I'd have to play through the full campaign, but I can at least tell you what I think based on my experience with 3 different missions. Now, I should say that I'm a pretty harsh critic when it comes to single-player FPS games. It takes a lot to wow me, and I put a big emphasis on the gameplay. That's what really makes me enjoy a single-player campaign, is when it's challenging, it's innovative, it's fun, it's interesting. But that's my personal taste, and I can totally understand if you're in the mood for more of a sit back and enjoy the big set-piece action experience, which is definitely the route that it seems like Battlefield 6 is going. Now, I got a little bit of backstory brief before jumping into the first mission. It's the year 2027 and the NATO alliance is crumbling, with many of the European countries withdrawing and turning to PAX, a private military corporation to provide protection for their countries. And for reasons that are not totally clear yet anyway, PAX chose to attack NATO during a transfer of power, which essentially kicks off a war. And in that war, you play as a member of Dagger 1-3, an elite Marines raider unit. You actually switch between the different characters in this unit, which, aside from having different voices and character background, you also bring in different sets of gadgets to the field. Like when you play as Simone Espina, the recon class of your squad, you get to fly a little recon drone around, spotting enemies and dropping bombs on them. Now, in my opinion, one of the big cool set-piece cinematic missions here is Operation Gladius. It starts you off in the middle of a combat beach landing where you're basically a gunner for an Amtrak and you have to clear a D-Day-like defensive position on the shore. The visuals in this sequence are good. They're not what I would call stunning, which, to be honest, DICE is usually known for, but they do check all the checkboxes of AAA beach landing sequence. That said, the gameplay here is quite generic. You're not even controlling the Amtrak, you're just gunning. So you shoot mines in the water, you shoot the gun emplacements when you get to the beach, and you shoot the guys on the beach and stuff. It's basically a cinematic sequence where you get to point and shoot. After this sequence though, it does transition to an on-foot experience where you push into a city with an APC for backup. And it's actually kind of cool pushing up with an APC. You get to be an engineer and you have to repair your armor to keep it alive. If it dies, you will fail the mission, which is kind of nice that the single player is at least a little bit teaching you how to play your class. There's also a decent amount of destruction here. Shooting walls with RPGs often opens up the buildings, exposing the shooter or just killing them outright. Some big set-piece buildings completely collapse during combat, which is also cool. And this combat sequence is pretty decent in general as far as shooters on rails go. There's not a huge amount of agency here. You're still, for the most part, just moving forward down a path and shooting the guys that pop up from behind cover. Your choices as a player mainly boil down to what type of gun you want to pick up off the ground and if you want to shoot a guy with an RPG or a bullet. You do get a command wheel ability that allows you to control your squad in the sense of telling them to throw a grenade somewhere or throw a smoke grenade somewhere, but at least from my experience, it seems like they won't do it unless they're in range of certain things, so its use is pretty limited. Now, the mission eventually progresses into a pretty cool mansion assault, and DICE is showing off some fun set-piece moments here with enemies blowing up entire walls to start off an ambush. and it is pretty cool. I think they did an alright job of mixing destruction into the campaign process, but the gameplay is still undeniably boilerplate, and it does feel like DICE might be rushing just a little bit to get this done. There's a decent amount of character animation jank with non-clean transitions for moving around, or when you're locked into a more cinematic sequence, it can feel a little bit glitchy or hiccupy or hitchy rather. Some of the characters, like a guy giving you a debrief in New York City, will be talking to you and his eyes will be staring off into the distance and not looking at you at all. That said, DICE mentioned that there is a patch coming for the launch build of the game so that bugs that we may be experiencing here could be finished in the final build. So I don't know if I'm complaining about something that nobody will ever experience. Now, when I booted up Mission 5, which is called No Sleep, it starts me off in New York City, and the first part of the mission is, well, let's just call it what it is. It's a Call of Duty Clean House mission ripoff sequence, which I'm totally fine with because that mission in Call of Duty was amazing, and NVG house raids seem like they're becoming the norm ever since that mission came out, so I'm totally fine with DICE having their own version of it. That said, with DICE making their own version of Clean House, it's very easy for me to say that the original Call of Duty mission was significantly better than this one. DICE does add a sledgehammer element to the experience, allowing you to break through walls and make your own entrances, but the AI is much clunkier and the whole ambience of the mission is definitely way off, without really even needing NVGs in the first place. However, this is made up for with a much bigger action sequence that leads you into a subway and then into a train chase sequence and then out of the subway and then into a bridge firefight with explosions and a ruined train. The set piece sequences are really impressive. The gameplay is, again, still very boilerplate though. Just about as close as you can get to it being a shooter on rails without it technically being on rails. And the narrative and character building stuff that you go through along the way isn't exactly riveting stuff. Maybe I'm missing some character building moments earlier in the game that'll make it more meaningful, but it more or less fits the general bill of that military gruff campaign.
Get to the town! Motherfucker!
The final mission I got to play was Operation Ember Strike, and if the first two missions were mostly an on-rails experience, this mission is the more open-world, choose-your-approach to the next objective, but it's done in the DICE way, which means that your choices are a little more superficial than something that's more dynamic and reactive. This is the mission where you get to play the recon class and you can fly your little drone around and scout stuff and even use it to drop bombs on enemies. You have a sniper rifle for long-range sniping. You can pick a vehicle up if you want to get between objectives quickly, but it's usually better to hop out and go in on foot once you're actually in a firefight. This was definitely the lesser of the three missions I played. Visually, it was the weakest, and gameplay-wise, it seemed like it was trying to give me more options, but they were all just really sort of uninteresting. There's even a few comically bad sequences where you get on a switchblade drone launcher. It's basically a UCAV from Battlefield 4, and then you fly into oncoming armored columns, but it's so slow and easy to fly, and the armored vehicles just keep driving at you even though all the ones in front of them keep exploding to your drones. It just feels like the most Lemmings experience ever, and it just completely takes you out of the moment. Now, for the most part though, the Battlefield campaign does, I think, what it's supposed to do. It gives you these big set piece sequences, gives you some sort of idea about the backstory, although I haven't quite gotten all of it from just playing 3 missions yet, and gives you a fairly easy to accomplish combat sequence that everybody can get through and then go on to play the multiplayer. Again, I'm an old school fan. I grew up on Battlefield not having a single player and that not being the main draw of the game to me, and so when they added it, it just didn't really add anything that I was excited about, and it appears that Battlefield 6 is more or less continuing that same tradition, creating a competent but fairly uninteresting gameplay experience that seems to be more about just showing off cool visuals and making trailer clips to market the game. Anyway, it is what it is. It's pretty much exactly what I was expecting, and probably what you were expecting too if you've ever played a Battlefield Battlefield campaign before. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about what you've seen so far from this video. Are you hyped about the campaign, or is it mostly multiplayer? Also, it's pretty dang hard making a single player, a AAA, let alone an indie game, and if you want to see some of the behind the scenes of me working on my own single player game, check out the latest devlog for C-Beams, a spaceship action RPG that I've been working on for well over a year now. And yeah, it's hard work. It's tough making a video game. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.